I am going live over the next couple of days, just again, kind of on a strange time. I need to just plan for the summers to just be different. We were on a really good streak of going live every morning at 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern, and the weekend, same deal. It was a little bit later in the morning, but it was a consistent schedule. And so ever since the summer has rolled around, it's been a little bit off and on, such as today. So I don't know who's going to be tuning in, but I just know that it will be the right people, and I'm just excited for this conversation. I actually pulled up our lesson in A Course in Miracles that we would be going through, and I literally said, "Wow!" And we're still in our review section, but I think that this might be one of the ones that we missed. And so I pulled up the original lesson that we can review together because this seems so applicable to every single one of us. This whole question of, well, what if everything in our life is for us? It's trying to teach us something. There is good from everything that happens. And it could be a slight sliver of good. There's something to be said for tragedy and loss, and I'm not a stranger to that, nor is my sister, whose husband was killed at 26 years old by a drunk driver. So this conversation is more so to do with the day-to-day frustrations, struggles. How do we respond? Do we engage with the world with a lens of hope? And when we can start adjusting and even just identifying, how do I view the little things? Then when the big things come, we already have a baseline in terms of a foundational belief that can hold us when the pain comes. So this question is, what if everything is trying to teach you something? It completely shifts from us kind of judging things that come our way to being curious and wondering how this is for us. And even today, I was actually on a plane, and there was this young boy, probably two, and screaming, like just really being misbehaved. And, in one sense, I'm like, poor parents, but I'm like, well, maybe they've created this behavior. Who knows? All that to say, it was about 10 to 12 hours of just being around this kid. And it really was a meaningful moment for me. This lesson, of course, comes on the heels of that. While I was with them, I just had this thought, how is this for me? Because this is triggering something in me where I'm like, man, that's really frustrating to hear that screaming. And what would I do in that situation? I'm in public. Like, what would I actually do? And so it just changed it from being a lens of judgment to one of curiosity. And now, granted, this is something completely separate from me. So I put myself in the shoes of the parents. What would I do? How would I engage? That helps with empathy. But then as it pertains to this is actually for me, the funny thing is that I wasn't even supposed to be on that flight. I got like a little angel at American Airlines helping me to make the end destination flight. And he put me on, literally, they were saying last call to Charlotte. And I run over and I was like, my layover is in Dallas. I don't think I'm going to make it. The destination for Charlotte is going to the same place. And within 5 minutes, this guy, Christopher, put me on this flight. And it was such a blessing. And then there at the Charlotte airport, I met this family. And y'all, this is the thing. If we engage in life with humility, with curiosity, and just with an openness to seek, to try to learn, to try to understand, how is this for me? What is the good in this? What is this trying to teach me? What in me is being triggered or activated by this moment? And what would it look like to actually see growth in that area? So now every single experience becomes a teacher in and of itself. So with that kind of mindset here, I want to just jump into the chat really fast before we dive into the lesson. Mr. Oliver, I'm so glad to see you. Hello. Man in the Hat, hello, I'm so glad to see you. Goose Hunter, hi. It's Arm Shark, hello. This this channel, he says, what's this channel about? On this channel, on the Knowing Show, we talk about the 4 key intelligences: intellectual intelligence, emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, and physical intelligence. And it's really a place where we will, sometimes we'll talk about religion, but usually it's under the guise of how do we actually have relationship, not religion. And it's how do we actually adopt for ourselves our own belief systems, because every single one of us is operating off of belief systems. The question is whether you put it there or whether you simply inherited it. When is the last time you cross-referenced your belief system against your own experience, against your own conviction, versus that is simply what was told to me, rather than this revelation within? Intuition, the Latin root of that is intuere, which means to be taught from within. So am I taking time to listen, to sense, to hear the voice of God, to hear my own kind of inner compass speaking? Or am I so fixated on the world around me that I can't even hear what's going on inside of me, that usually comes in the quietness and in the whisper? Just jumping through here. Timmy, hello. Reburks, good to see you. We love you, Jesus. Hello. Thanks for joining. Timmy says it's psychology. I love that. All right, cool. So guys, and Timmy says physical intelligence, more like physical strength. So what I mean by that is there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score that really changed my, honestly, relationship with my physical body. And what I came to learn, this book was authored by a psychotherapist. His name was Bessel van der Kolk. And this was, I think it was, I don't want to put a date on it. I might get it wrong. This was written years ago. And it really was one of the groundbreaking books that helped people understand how trauma is stored in your body. And so when we have a physical reaction to something, that is literally our body sending signals of, hey, I have data on this. Like, be wary of this person, be wary of this situation. Or it could be beyond just red flags or warning signals. If we haven't healed something or tended to something from the past, it comes back in the present moment. And then what happens is our oxygen actually gets cut off. When our cortisol spikes, our oxygen stops flowing to the part of the brain that holds short-term memory. And so that's why the past suddenly feels so real in the present moment, because as our breath tightens and gets shortened due to the high cortisol and our body goes into fight or flight, we forget that we're actually not there. And he actually studied war veterans. And this was one of the biggest findings with them, because people would just be engaging with their husbands or spouses or dads or whatever. And then all of a sudden, there would just be this trigger that would set them off. And they started putting war vets back in, mid 1950s. They started putting them into mental hospitals and psych wards because they just had no category for what was happening. And so the more that they started understanding the physiological relationship with the kind of our neurosystem and literally like the actual neurological biology of our body and how it retains and remembers things, then it's like, okay, I actually need to start paying attention. If I get sick to my stomach, there's something there. There's actually data there. Just like how we store data from kind of our memory of don't touch a hot stove, it's very similar, where if you're driving and you got hit in a certain way, and this is actually one of the stories in the book, where a mother's driving and she gets, I think, T-boned and her daughter dies. Now, every time she crosses an intersection, she kind of freezes. And so she actually struggled to drive for a long time. So that's literally the physical ramification of the unprocessed emotional grief. And then there's obviously physical trauma of like buddies who have gotten so injured in war, and then their body literally shows for that. So this is what it means for spiritual or physical intelligence, and it's all connected. So we have over-cultivated and overemphasized the intellectual intelligence. That's the thing that people get fired for. It's the thing that brings us all of our monetary gain for the most part. It's the thing that kind of makes our world go round. And it's, so often it's attributed to the fiat currency, and that's how we exist as a culture. But when we start understanding and assigning honor to recognizing that relationships are so much predicated in the emotional intelligence. It is requiring that. Well, now when we start having issues in our marriage or issues with parenting or just even with our own selves, there's this new world that opens up when we start affording honor to the other 50% of us. The left hemisphere of the brain is the intellect. The right hemisphere of the brain is the emotions. And man, there's a lot to explore when we start allowing ourselves to simply be curious. So to this whole conversation, what if everything is trying to teach us a lesson? I've found that sometimes we encounter things simply to just wake us up and to remind us, oh my gosh, like I have, when we talk about the physical intelligence, that's a piece of the pie. Spiritual intelligence, that's another piece. Emotional intelligence, that's another. So if we're only living in the intellect, well, geez, maybe it's actually less than 50%. Maybe it's 25% because we've got these other pieces of ourselves that we've cut off access to. It's Arm Shark says, what are thoughts on people who get slowly introduced into trauma versus those who experience it all of a sudden? Man, what a brilliant question. I've never seen that question come up here. So that's it's like very wise. I actually think that I consider what you just said to be the little T traumas. So we've got the capital T traumas, which are the woman who got T-boned and her daughter died. We've got the capital T trauma of my sister's husband being killed by a drunk driver. We've got the capital T trauma of a war veteran, in battle getting hit by an explosion. And those are the capital T traumas. Those are like, well, obviously we need to go and tend to that and heal from that. But it's like the slow drip of the faucet that slowly erodes parts of us, whether it's our mind, our soul, our spirit. A friend of mine once said, she said, my dad slowly broke my spirit over the years of she said, he spanked my personality out of me because growing up, that's how they disciplined, was just any talk back, any questioning, any idea that was an alternative from what her father was saying. He spanked out the personality out of her. And so she had to really go back and recover. But man, she's actually dealing with the little T traumas of over time that has such a massive stamp on who she is today, because it was so small. It was just like, again, the little, either you can kind of think of it, the slow drips in the faucet, it's death by 1,000 cuts, like same concept. Where, man, those little T traumas, and one of the reasons why they're so deadly is not just do you not notice it along the way, but you don't take it seriously. You belittle it. And actually, what's even worse is not just belittling it, but shaming it. Like, well, that shouldn't have bothered me. I know he didn't mean it. I know that he's a good person. So we actually are justifying our own experience with whatever that little T trauma was, that then prevents us from being able to heal from it and then get free from it. Because on the other side of the healing is freedom, and to be able to put the past behind us and say, I'm actually not going to be that person. Exactly, Brian, stop playing the victim. So in order for us to stop playing the victim, I actually need to go tend to that so that I am free from that, because otherwise it stays in our subconscious. It is like literally resting just beneath the surface. When you think of that iceberg, you see the tip of the iceberg, and you might see somebody acting out in just a weird way. When you look underneath, you're like, oh, that behavior is coming from all of these patterns of treatment in childhood, all of these core experiences and memories that really solidified into beliefs, because every belief or every behavior comes from a belief. So what we see externally in people is just the tip of the iceberg. It goes so much deeper. Wow. David says, I feel like that in my marriage, slowly beat out of me and no longer care about intimacy after almost 8 years. Oof. Oh my gosh. Oh, David, I'm so sorry. It's funny. I think that there's something about even just it's kind of a weary statement to say that, like, it's been beat out of me. It's just like, it's heavy. I remember feeling similarly. It was year 5 for me in my former marriage, where I just remember telling my former husband, I was like, I have done everything I can possibly think of to make you happy. Like, what do I need to do? And I was at my wit's end, and I love Shun Hall says, oh, I'm sorry, Sun says you need marriage counseling. I do. I found it really, really helpful when I did go get support. That was a massive turning point for me. And you know what it does? It brings a third party in to hold up a mirror for you. And I got to tell you, so David says, been to counseling so many times, she's not interested. I had to go to counseling for me. It was only when I took radical responsibility for myself, not even looking at the marriage, because honestly, I had never dealt with my brother-in-law being killed. I was so devastated by that. And I realized that after those 6.5 years of not dealing with it, I was fundamentally not showing up in my marriage, even though he might be the one who was maybe more grumpy or obviously unhappy. Just because I didn't let my emotions show does not mean I was living authentically, nor healthy, nor really able to really give and serve and be alive and be who I was created to be. So before we can really engage in relationship, I think of marriage as kind of like the meeting on the bridge. I'm on my side, he's on his side, and then we meet in the middle. That is the thing called marriage. And ideally, after, we have the ability to go sit in each other's experience and see the world through their eyes. But man, if I have not even sat in my own experience, there is no way I can meet them in the middle, nor go sit with them on their side of things. So then I am fundamentally lacking empathy. The definition of emotional intelligence is the ability to understand, it's the ability to be aware of, and the ability to convey one's own emotions. And then it's also the ability to engage in interpersonal relationships with empathy and with wisdom. So the empathy and wisdom piece comes after being aware of, understanding, and conveying one's own emotions. That's first. That's our job. And I had never done any of that. So if we all have yet to do that in our lives, and when we have yet to take that responsibility of going inward, looking inward, and really taking account, how am I showing up today? Am I actually living in accordance with who I want to be? Y'all, I had a breakthrough on the plane today. I was sitting there and I actually sat there in silence without my phone for probably in total 90 minutes out of, I had about an 8-hour flight, but I would sit down and just put down my phone and just like close my eyes and just like, how am I doing? Because I knew I was off. I've been feeling off for a good probably 2 months, maybe a month. And I realized today, like after just sitting and kind of asking questions and leaning into the kind of what was coming up, because as we sit in the silence, thoughts emerge. And then we can follow those thoughts and say, okay, well, why is that there? What belief is underneath that thought? And I realized it. I was walking up to my room and all of a sudden it hit me. I have forgotten who I am. Because so long as we don't know, there is no way we can act like it. All of our behavior stems from our belief. And so your partner is likely doing the same thing. And this is where us leading by example, I actually ended up, even though my husband ended up leaving, I apologized to him. I was like, I'm sorry for not going to therapy sooner. Granted, I think he should have gone. But me going to therapy was the catalyst to change in our relationship. And I thought that change would be that we would be together forever. And that's what I wanted. But the thing is that once one person starts changing, the relationship can no longer stay the same. So if we want to see change in our relationship, well, we can at least change ourselves. And then it forces the conversation, it forces change. We cannot exist in the same way tomorrow as we did today if tomorrow we are a different person. So we now have the opportunity to take that responsibility and live accordingly and take back, someone said earlier, stop living as a victim. We are living as a victim for so long as we are pointing the finger. And there's probably truth to it. But why am I so fixated on what they're doing rather than getting myself the hell out of Dodge or changing what I need to change? I was thinking about this as in terms of a relationship with someone close to me. It's like, man, what do I do? And then I just realized, I was like, okay, well, they're actually a parasite in my life. So what am I going to do about that? I can go try to change them or have them stop being a parasite, or I can take action for myself because that is my radical responsibility. I just want to jump over here in the chat. Chris, Chris Fall. Oh, that's so funny. I'm not married, but thank you. I don't know. Thank you. David says she said she would try since our last year anniversary, and I think 0 is nothing. David, I'd love to know. I'd love to know. Like, do you know what you need from her? Do you know? Like, my husband would ask me, what do you want? And I was really vague. Like, I didn't really know because I didn't know myself. I literally did not know myself enough to know what I wanted. That's how I was existing in my marriage. I was so disconnected from myself and so fixated on him. And other people struggle in different ways. Maybe you're so fixated on work that you're just not even clear. You don't like your marriage, but you don't know why. Or maybe you know that you want to see change, but you don't know how. Maybe you don't even remember why you're in this relationship to begin with. So I really encourage every single person on here who's in a relationship and not happy with it to think through, like, what do you actually want and need? Those are two very, very different things. And so what you need is, okay, I actually need to be treated with respect. If they're screaming at me, yelling at me, like, that's crossing a boundary. Boundaries are the parameters that need is the nucleus of. And then the boundaries keep us safe to make sure that we're actually getting our needs met. And then wants are, well, gosh, if I'm going to live a full, vibrant life, this is what I want. And you know what? Here's the thing. I actually want to live a life of service. So sometimes that might seemingly conflict with, okay, well, I want to go out and go to this event, but I want to live a life of service and I'm given the opportunity to serve. And then that's, okay, to our point, full circle back to the beginning of this show, the Latin root of intuition is intuere, to be taught from within. That's where we actually need to know our inner guiding voice, to know the voice of God, to have some semblance on, like, what is the right choice here? Because I've got two wants that are conflicting. And maybe ego might be speaking more into one versus maybe the other voice could even be codependence or self-abandonment. There's shadows. For every great light, there is a shadow. So for the great light that is, I want to live an experiential life and explore the world and eat good food and be with wonderful people. And there's a shadow to that. And then for, I really want to serve and I want to love people so well and I want to give and make other people better as a result of that. There's a shadow to that too. And I existed in that shadow for my entire marriage, literally my entire marriage. I was not living awake and aware to the very things we've been talking about on this show for the last 365 days. Because I wasn't aware. That's the very first step in emotional intelligence, the ability to be aware of one's emotions. And then it's to understand them and then to convey them. So I fundamentally was unable to do relationships because I did not have that foundation. And y'all, we're not taught this in school. So there's so much reason for compassion and be gentleness. But to this point, what if everything is trying to teach us something? What if every moment is just an opportunity to learn? Like, we get to be perpetual students. We get to be like kids again, where we get to ask why. And isn't that freeing? We don't have to know all the answers. We don't have to be, the big shot that everybody comes to for advice. My gosh, what a blessing to take that hat off and surrender that role to somebody else. Like, I actually don't need to be the smartest person in the room. I get to ask questions. And when we look at people who are very successful, they know the art of why. They know the art of asking questions and curiosity. The two folks, probably the two most successful men that I've ever spoken with, they both have 9-figure businesses. So they've crested the $100 million mark. And they both said curiosity. in terms of one of the most important like tenets of an individual. And they both said that. And I thought that was so fascinating. I had never heard anybody else say that until these two men. And it's something so simple. It's not flashy, it's not sexy. It's be curious and get $100 million. It was like, no, that's just the heart posture of how they approach life. And then it allows for them to be creative. There's something kind of vulnerable about curiosity because you're effectively saying, I don't know. In the pursuit of knowledge lies an innate humility to go and explore the truth and know the truth. Are we willing to know the truth? So to this whole conversation around emotional intelligence, around relationships, are we willing to know the truth about ourselves? And that's a different kind of pain. Waking up to the reality of how we have lived in our own body, in our own skin for however many years, and waking up to that. I told my therapist when I woke up, I was like, well, no wonder my husband left me. Who would want to be married to a non-person? And so then, my therapist was encouraging me to be gracious and kind to myself. But at the same time, like, it kind of made sense. Like, oh, I was only living to love him and serve him and make him happy. I wasn't coming forward with opinions and ideas. I wasn't a creative partner. I wasn't thinking outside the box or living large because I was just existing in my own little haven. Well, not even haven. It was probably a hell, but it was a cage. The cage that was given me by all the beliefs that I held because of everyone else's opinions and their belief systems when I was a kid. I never cultivated my own. I never really strengthened my ability to think for myself. It was constantly through the lens. It's like when you go to the optometrist and you put your face against the dials. And then as they switch them, you can see clearer. Well, I was seeing through the lens of what would everyone else think? And that will fundamentally always stop the ability to come to know who we are, because who we are is stripped away from everybody else. It's like us alone. So I host knowing retreats. And one of the exercises that I'll do, whether it's professional, I'll do it with businesses, but I'll also do it with individuals. And one of the exercises that I do is I have people close their eyes and imagine that they're in a white room, just completely white walls. It's endless, like nobody else is there. And they're just sitting alone with themselves. And then kind of the next step is like, okay, now look at yourself. Look at yourself sitting in that chair. How do you view yourself? And the feedback, when people really did this exercise, it was very vulnerable. A lot of people didn't like who they were when they looked at themselves. Some people couldn't even look at themselves. Like they just could not exist alone with themselves. And so that little thought exercise is helpful for us to consider, what is my current relationship with me? Because I am experiencing life through everyone else's opinions, through everyone else's experience. So what does it look like to live life through my own lens? Would I notice the trees more? Would I actually take AirPods out and be present? Would I actually delight in the little things? What would happen if I actually sat in the driver's seat of my day? And just maybe one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe today. Take a day and just see what would happen if you just completely turned this thing off and eliminated all inputs and just sat with you and what comes up. I'm just jumping back here in the chat. Mike's ready. Hello. Good to see you, Window. Jeff Pfeiffer. Hello. Change begets change. Word. That's so good. Daniel. Hello. Chris Alex. Hello. Victoria. Good to see you. Susie Starling. Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, Sean Hall says we could talk for hours about intuition. So true. John R., you can't expect him to change unless he knows who you have become and wants to be with you. Your change caused the loss of his affection. It was good for you, and that's great. What an interesting point. You can't expect him to change unless he knows who you have become and wants to be with you. I I think that this is a really interesting point, but I kind of want to stop midway through your sentiment. You can't expect him to change unless he knows you. I think my former husband was probably, I don't know. I can't say anything about that. What I will say is that I never gave him the opportunity to really know me because I didn't know myself. And so how could there be any real healthy change when there's a lack of clarity of what the target is, but also where we're even starting from? To know our baseline, to like line up for the gunshot to fire, we actually need to know what's our starting line. Where are we starting today based on everything that has come before us? Knowing the past allows us to know the present and then identify where we're going. But if we haven't done the work to reconcile the past, man, we're really, really going to be wandering off course because we don't have a GPS system. But the past effectively gives us an understanding of where we're starting so that then we can clarify, okay, that's where I want to go. That's my vision. That's what I have been dreaming of and what I've wanted. Now I can reverse engineer the pathway to get there. So wise, John. Alex, hello. Man in the hat. Bradley, hello. Good to see you. 66, thank you for joining. Just scrolling through. Saf, hello. Sun, how long did your marriage last? I was married for 8.5 years. So put in a good run. And I think we both really did our best. I think God bless it. God bless those young kids, right? I was 20 years old when I got married. He was 23. Like, man. Scrolling down. Oh, Wayne. Thank you. I don't know about that, but thank you. Louis, true love. Oh, that's crazy. Scrolling. Ryan Cox. I'm glad you're here, Ryan. Scrolling through. Hevmet, hello. Man in the hat, I love you. Same can be said about people that randomly comment. Oh, what's in the blue bottle? First, can we just talk about how beautiful this is? Like the most pretty cup of my life. $20. So for the win. This is water. There's water in here. Manis, hello. Good to see you. Bammy. I'm reading the chat. Scrolling down. Man in the hat, I feel like maybe I should start blocking people. Should I do that? All right, guys. I'm gonna go ahead. I was letting people share, but people are being just unkind at this point. So we're just gonna go ahead and put folks on timeout, just to kind of keep. We were having a good talk in the chat too, and then it kind of got run out. So for all the angry, upset folks, I'm just putting you on timeout. You can calm down. The ringworm, I love that. Everyone just deserves to be happy. Isn't that such a beautiful thought? MS Playtime, hello. I just had a birthday on Tuesday. I'm 33 years old. The G bloke, hello. Thanks for joining. I love your note. Thank you, man in the hat. Yes, the haters are gonna hate. It's like, yeah, there's a fine line between like having, again, kind of like a defense and boundary line to protect all of us in the chat, but then letting people share freely. I don't know. I'm still figuring out that line because I think it kind of changes. Um, Absolutely nobody. Hi, I'm glad to see you. Boom, hello. Macqueel, hello. Oh, David, thank you. Thank you so much for your note. Y'all, I think what I'm going to do is, no, you know what? Let me see. I have a friend joining me, and I just want to make sure that she isn't going to be here too soon. Okay, she just got on the train. I should probably hop off here in about 5 minutes, but I do actually want to read today's lesson. Today's lesson, I pulled it up and it was so, 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 so good. And it has exactly to do with the title for today. So let me read through that and then we'll go ahead and wrap up here. So we're in a review section in A Course in Miracles. Y'all, I started reading this last year. They have a little lesson for every day, and it just kind of helped me get my mind, heart, soul, spirit into alignment first thing out of the gate every day. So this lesson is lesson 193. All things are lessons God would have me learn. And this is just the recap. A lesson is a miracle which God offers to me in place of thoughts I made that hurt me. Wow. What I learn of him becomes the way I am set free. And so I choose to learn his lessons and forget my own. I don't know if other people feel this way, but read it. That is incredibly profound, that the lessons that we learn are it's like a miracle from God that sets us free from the past. But otherwise, man, guys, if my husband hadn't left, I would have never, I mean, maybe I would have woken up, but I wouldn't have woken up at 28 years old. And I wouldn't have come aware of all these things that now is kind of like my life's purpose. So the very desolation of my soul was the very thing that helped me come to find it. And this is how lessons work. This is how what, is intended for evil, God intends for good. There is a redemptive story in every single lesson that's possible, so long as we're willing to allow for us to be curious about our beliefs, our behaviors, our thoughts, be curious about why they're there, and do the work to trace them back to the roots and basically say, okay, well, what is the alternative to this? Because the book As a Man Thinketh was written by James Allen. And the concept is that our minds are likened to a garden, and there's thoughts that are sown, and there's weeds, and obviously healthy plants. So if we were to just pull out the weeds, we actually need to put something in their place, because they might just kind of grow back and eventually choke out the good plants. So it's not just about removing the old thoughts. It's not just about forgiveness. Forgiveness, as it seems to only be looking back, it's like, okay, let me just eliminate and nullify everything that took place. But now forgiveness actually is propelling me into the future where I am free from that so that I can live. So it's the reconciliation and forgiveness of the past with a future vision. We can't just live in this neutral space. There's no such thing as a neutral thought. So it's a real intentional action to plant something new in its place. So what's the old, then what's the new? And then what does it look like to actually really uproot? What does that work look like? So now it gets into the daily habits. And so part of my uprooting is actually taking time every single morning to kind of just sit in the quiet and listen. What needs to go out? It's journaling. Part of journaling is pouring out. Our bodies, talk about physical intelligence, our bodies have the lymphatic system that flushes out toxins and waste, and it has the glymphatic system, and that's the thing that cleanses and like rinses our brain. But we don't have anything for the soul. We don't have anything for our emotional health. So the pouring out by way of journaling, by way of even counseling, is a way to rid ourselves of the toxins that build up, so that we're constantly flushing out and we have greater capacity. It's like with every flush, we get more space back, more capacity to love, to vision, to dream, to get something new in place of the old. But first, we've got to get rid of it. So Y'all, thank you so much for joining today. Wayne, I'm gonna go check my messages. I haven't been on social very much or on email. I've been a little bit MIA, so I'll go check that. Y'all, thank you so much for joining. Oh, Man in the Hat, let me know when the community gathering is tomorrow. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I just launched the Knowing Community last week. No, this week. This week. And it's very new. Bammy, we're live, by the way. It's very new. And I would love to invite you guys to join before I open it up to the community, I guess. Like people on my email list, people on my social media channels. I just wanted to have you guys have the opportunity to join, because what I'd like to do is have the community built by the community. Guys, I love our chats. I love the comments. I love the questions. I love how much experience people are bringing in. Everyone's encouraging each other for the most part. And that's what I think we all need. We all need this kind of connection. We need this kind of conversation. Where else are we going to have real conversation around, my marriage is failing, or I'm really pissed off about my dad? Where are we getting that? And so that's what the Knowing Community is for. So I'm just putting this back here in the chat. If you guys want, Hayden, we're live right now. Absolutely nobody. Thank you for joining. I'll see you later. Whoever wants to join, I'm actually going to go ahead and put this in the description for the Knowing podcast. But I would love to have you guys. And I would love to have you guys. We only have like a few members right now because I haven't opened it up and I've only shared it one other time. So would love to have you. I'm just going to keep talking about it because at some point, so then to that point about when we're going to have our first Sunday chat, and we're going to be meeting every Sunday, just us, without going live. It's just going to be private. We're going to start that in 2 Sundays from now on the 16th. That's our first one, which I'm so excited for. So go ahead and follow that. Y'all, thank you for joining. I loved this conversation. JG, thanks for joining. Anthony, Hayden, thank you, my friend. Matt Montez, thank you. Thank you for joining. I love y'all so much. Byron, thank you for joining. Alex, good to see you. Have a wonderful night. No one bring you down. Byron, I love that. All right, y'all.